who the Republicans had always gone to do the redistricting, so they can gerrymandering. He's the expert on gerrymandering in the United States. He came up with a program, a computer program, that was able to take a state and divide it up so that in the end, more Republicans are elected than Democrats. Okay? Well, he had passed away. And when he had passed away, his daughter came to the mother, the wife, and said, listen, can I look at my father's hard drive? Because there's some stuff on there that he was holding for me that I would like back. Mother said, sure, here you go. She gave him all his hard drives. Now, the backstory here was that the daughter and the father were basically hated each other. They had gotten into a fight and hadn't spoken for years. So she got a hold of these hard drives, and she started finding just all these documents, these correspondence, going from him to the Commerce Department, telling them, how to do, how important the citizenship question is for voter suppression and for the redistricting and all this and all this. So all this now came to light that when what we were saying from the beginning was actually true, that the only reason they wanted the citizenship question was to suppress the vote and was to help Republicans in the redistricting. That was the only reason. And here was a smoking gun. The problem is, we had already made our arguments to the Supreme Court. What are you going to do? The Supreme Court was already going to, what we felt was rule against us. So we went to our original judge and said, Your Honor, we need to reopen this. One. Two, we found out that through this that the government was lying to us in the discovery phase when we asked them for information. We noticed that they were holding back documents that we specifically had asked for and that they said they never had. And here they are. So the judge at that time said, basically, well, it's in front of the Supreme Court. There's nothing I can do. So we filed what's called a motion for sanctions. That means we asked him to penalize the government for this. We then went to the Supreme Court and refiled this and asked them to reopen this. They kind of sat on that. They never responded to that. But eventually they issued their decision. And the decision that we thought we were going to lose, all of a sudden, miraculously, we won. And we won because the Supreme Court Justice Roberts, the Chief Justice, I think basically said, enough is enough. I can cover for you only so much. But when things are this blatant that you're not only lying to the country, but you're lying to the court, we're not going to have it. So he eventually ruled against them. And he kicked the citizenship question off the ballot. But he didn't say they couldn't do it. So this is sort of the fine line. He said, no, the government can add a citizenship question. They just didn't do it the right way this time. And they threw it out. Now, the government had indicated to the Supreme Court that they had to go to print by July 1st. If they could not go to print by July 1st, the census would have been in trouble. Okay, the decision came out literally a week before the July 1st deadline. Now, what does the government can do? They had the procedure of how to go through in order to put this question on there legally. They just didn't have the time to do it. So they ended up going to print on July 1st without the citizenship question on there.
We won.
Well, it wasn't done. Because what did Trump do at that point? He basically said, to hell with the Supreme Court. I'm going to ask this question. And he ordered the Justice Department to find a way of doing it. So now we're going back now. The Supreme Court remanded it to the lower court to say, here, issue this decision. We went back to the lower court, and we said, Your Honor, we need to know from the government, what are they going to do? Are they going to press this issue, or are they going to drop it? Government lawyers looked at the judge and said, Judge, Your Honor, honestly, we have no clue. We have no idea. We haven't gotten our directions yet. So the judge gave them literally a week. He said, you have 1 week, come back, and you must decide. Are you going forward, or are you dropping it? They announced that they were going to drop it, which really pissed off Donald Trump. And he said, no, you're not. And he forced them to put it back. What did the lawyers say to them? The lawyers basically told them, we can't make this argument in good faith. So he said, fine, you're out. I'm getting new lawyers. Problem was, there were no lawyers that were willing to do it because they knew at the end of the day, this was a losing case. Eventually, what Donald Trump did was sort of as a face-saving measure. He says, I'm going to drop the case, but I'm going to order that all departments cooperate with the census so that they can get the information regarding citizenship that they would have gotten through this question. Well, the problem is the census always had that power. The census could go to any government agency to ask for information. They could do it. That was always there. So it was another red herring, another attempt to scare people not to fill out the census. So when we're going around now to talking to people, people still think that the citizenship question is on the census, and it's not. But the perception is out there, so it's part of this education that we're doing. What else? People are always scared, especially under this administration, that the census is going to take all their information and give it to the FBI or give it to ICE or give it to. As Nathalie said earlier, there is federal statutes that impose, I believe, a 10-year sentence on anyone that discloses census information to anybody outside the census. That's there. The census is supposed to act like a black hole when it comes to information. That means it's supposed to suck up all the information, all the statistics, but not allow anything to go out. Okay? It does allow general information for research and statistical purposes, but they cannot send out anything identifying. That means they can't say there's an Arab living on this block in this part of Anaheim, and this is where it is. They can't even say how many Arabs live within a specific neighborhood. Mm-hmm. They're not even allowed to say that. Because that's what was used during World War II in the internment camps with the Japanese Americans. The census gave information to the government and said, well, you have Japanese Americans living here and you have Japanese Americans living in this neighborhood, go get them. After that, this law was passed. Now, does this an absolute guarantee? No. I can't sit here in good faith tell you that Donald Trump isn't going to do something stupid later on that's going to negate that. I honestly, in good faith, can't tell you that. Okay? What I can tell you, and is what Nahla just said, what are the benefits of us doing it and versus the benefits of us not doing it? And I leave it up to you whether to fill out or not. I also will tell you that it is against the law for anybody to advise people not to fill out the census. Although nobody's ever been prosecuted on that, that is the law. Now I want to get back to one last thing, and that is sort of the new sort of bone they threw out to our community. They're using the same census question as last year, as 10 years ago. But what they're doing something a little bit different here. And what that is they'll ask you, how do you identify yourself? And one of the categories will be white. And there will be another category called other. Now, there are other categories as well, but those are the two sort of categories that would most pertain to us. So they will ask you, here it is. So your options as an Arab is, one, if you do consider yourself white, and that's what you feel comfortable with, that's your choice. Remember, this is all about self-identification. You can choose white. Then they will ask you, how do you identify yourself? And that's your opportunity. Palestinian, Lebanese, Syrian, Tunisian, however you want to define yourself, you can then do it in that line. And that will be counted. So not only will you be counted as white ultimately, but for our benefit is you will also be counted as whatever you put down, whether it's Palestinian, Lebanese, Tunisian, whatever you want to put down, you could. But there is one other little kind of hook. You can also mark down other. Okay? And if you mark down other, they're technically not supposed to reclassify you as white. They have to classify you as other. And once you mark down other, you're still given the same opportunity to put down how you self-identify yourself. Palestinian, Lebanese, Tunisian, whatever. And you will be counted that way. Okay? So they will not necessarily count you as white for the statistics, overall statistics. They will count you as white when they need to, when whatever they're using, the purposes they're using the numbers for requires that then they can recategorize you. But other than that, they have to keep you as other. So those are your two options. Now, I can tell you this also, if you do not fill out the census, again, technically that's supposed to be a crime, but again, nobody's really been prosecuted for that. Also, nobody's ever really been prosecuted for partially filling out the census. That's been done before as well. Again, but I can't advise you to do either one. But if you don't fill it out, what happens? Do you think that's all it is? No. Because if you don't fill it out, they're going to send enumeraries out to your house, and they're going to, like she said, knock on the door. And they're going to try to and they're going to come out a second time and a third time. Eventually they'll give up, but the idea is that they are going to come out and get that knock on the door. So that's sort of the thing. The other thing is it's also not recommended, and technically I think it's against the law for you to fill out the census on behalf of somebody else. Now, in the past, they've usually given money to organizations such as Access to hire individuals to help people fill out the form. So in those cases, those people were actually trained, and those people, as Nahla said, were sworn to secrecy. And those people were allowed to fill out forms on behalf of the census. That's not happening this year, correct?
No, actually, we will be having tablets that the clients and individuals will come to our office, and we can help them, and they will push. We can translate, we can interpret, we can let them know what's the benefit, and they can do it. And if they need help, we can help them.
Yeah, but they cannot physically
But we cannot physically do it for them.
Okay, so I mean, that's a technicality
Right.
of the law itself. Now, and I know rightfully so, a lot of people here are scared of what this administration will do with this. And I will leave you with this one bit. Hope, maybe people don't consider it hope, but the census is occurring in 2020. By the time, it takes them, what, about 2 years to put the statistics together and get everything numbers done?
December 31st, that's when they deliver everything to the president.
Okay, that's 2020.
2020.
Cross your
December.
fingers that the Trump administration won't be there to do anything like this with the census. Because, and the reason why I say that is this, is if we're too scared to fill it out, and we don't because of fear of what the administration will do, and then the administration does lose, we've hurt ourselves for the next 10 years. So it's a chance. And again, like I said, I'm not going to tell you to fill it out or not to fill it out. I'm going to give you your rights. I'm going to tell you the benefits of filling it out. And ultimately, it's going to be up to your decision. Now, we've been working in partnership with Access and AI and several other national and local organizations on a Yalla Count Me In campaign, and we'll be continuing to do that all year. We do have some materials outside that you can pick up. There is also a website that you can go to that will also give you additional information. And, you know, hopefully we get everything we deserve. But ultimately, I think this census is going to be a fight for the country, because the Republicans, and again, as an organization, we're neither Democrat or Republicans. I'm just laying out facts of what's there. There's a lawsuit out of Alabama that says that Alabama wants the government only to count citizens, because they said the Constitution, that's what the Constitution says. That's what they're claiming. That is going through the courts, and that's actually also before the Supreme Court. There is a push from the Trump, from people, Trump supporters, where at the end of the day, they want the Trump administration, when dealing with redistricting, only to use data regarding citizens. Which, in a state like California, you're going to end up losing a lot of seats. A lot of seats. So, I think with that, we have about, 10 minutes. If anybody has any questions or comments, let's go this way. So,
first of all, the purpose of the census is taken every 10 years, and the number of people in the country is divided by 435, which is the number of people in the House of Representatives. From that, each state gets allocated so many representatives. Now, so each state every 10 years can get more representatives in the House or less. Another thing was the idea of counting people. Preceding the Civil War in 1861, the South wanted to count the Afro-Americans as 3/5 people for the purpose of getting more representation in the House of Representatives. That was a compromise that was made, so that they didn't count as a whole person, otherwise they could get more. The North didn't want them to be counted at all, the South wanted them to be counted as 3/5. So that was a compromise in 1861. Another thing is, when you use the term gerrymandering, many people might not know what that means. Gerrymandering is a make-believe dragon that was used in the 1800s to draw congressional districts, in which, isn't the state legislature in each state the one who creates the congressional district?
no, it depends on each state. Each state has a different method of redistricting. Each state has the ability to create its own method of doing it. Some states, I know, like the state of New Jersey and the state of Michigan, just passed this as part of a referendum vote. The redistricting is done by a neutral body, a body made up of equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans. The federal government has no power whatsoever doing redistricting. How the redistricting, each state has its, the question is about the redistricting, who does the redistricting. The Constitution gives the power of redistricting to the state bodies, okay? Each state then, through the state's own constitutions, decides on how they're going to redistrict it. Some states allow the state legislators to do it. Other states is a combination of the legislature and the governor. Some states, like I said, New Jersey, and this is a huge trend, require that it be done by a neutral body, a body that is not entirely composed of one party or another. And that's sort of the trend that's been happening. I know Arizona, I believe, passed it. Michigan passed it. New Jersey's been doing that since the beginning. So that's sort of what it is. But a lot of states still leave it up to the legislature, but not all of them.
Census Question. What that does is that identifies non-citizens, which would, they would be able to be picked up as non-citizens. Now, but then, if it's left off, the importance of counting the citizenship, counting the people, that's how the representatives are counted in the state. And
Okay.
the money is allocated through this House of Representatives, because they handle the finances.
Okay. All right. So.
School districts, but the only thing is, some districts will not accept the money.
I know.
Because it has usually
I'm just trying to move on. Thank you very much. We're going to go Ojin and then Sohail, okay? Ojina?
If the census data is not able to be disclosed, how are we able to actually collect information from that? And then, if we are, how long after the census has been collected are we able to?
The census is not allowed to disclose information,
Personal.
personal information, or information that allows people to be able to identify. It can, like, and on the sort of, the small level, it can issue statistics on a grander scale, but not on a smaller type, so that it can identify who lives where, what that person is, so forth and so on.
Are we able to ask for specific statistics? Or do they have just a set that they release and not?
You can go to the website of the census and you can look at some of the statistics. The area, they will give you the area of what's the socioeconomics, what's the ethnicity of who's living. Just like when we got some information about Westminster and Garden Grove, they said there's no Arab. And that's not true, but we were not counted.
You can pose questions to the database,
Right.
like you do, and it'll give you answers as much as it can. Okay, sorry.
I think, does ADC need to clarify these 2 points, other or white? Because if you actually say white, it's no longer in our interest to do so, because it increases statistically the number of whites vis-a-vis the minorities. So if we as Arabs say white, we should actually say other, because if you say white, the priority of the statistical majority of whites, which this is what they want, then has the upper hand and gets all the benefits, as opposed to the minorities, because the minorities shrink. So
Right.
Arabs should always use other, not white.
Right.
Well, I'll
Go
go
ahead.
Real quickly, I agree with you, but again, like I said earlier, the census is about self-identification, and the reality is there's a lot, especially the Arabs that have been here 3, 4, 5 generations. Those Arabs may consider themselves white. I would say you're not, but that's up to them, and if that's the way they want to fill it out, then who am I to tell them they can't?
No, but if they say other, they can still say Syrian.
Yeah, exactly.
Lebanese,
Right.
Exactly.
Palestinian,
Exactly.
Palestinian.
Yeah.
But if they say white, then a Palestinian white, a Jordanian white, it doesn't work out.
Sure, okay.
Right. I can go back to the information I talked to you about resources, where we always, as an Arab Americans, we're not getting our fair share of the federal funding. Organizations like Access California, ADC, Arab American Institute, we're not getting the fair share of funding for our community, to support our community. There's a lot of resources available, but we're not getting it because we're not counted. We don't have enough numbers to write proposals. The government is not going to write us a check. We have to ask for it, and we have to have data behind us. If there's no data, that's what we think. So that's why we need to be counted and known as Arab, because they don't fund religious institutions. They only fund ethnic groups.
We're going to take, because we're running out over time, so I'm going to take the last 2 questions. Please make them brief. Go ahead, you, and then the gentleman behind.
So how do you recommend we respond? I mean, if we all respond Syrian, Palestinian, Egyptian, I feel that divides us as opposed to having one unified. Can we just all put Arab American?
You-
I mean, what do you suggest so we can show that we have a large percentage
Yeah.
throughout the country?
It honestly, as long as you're able to put down something that's Arab related, we can then go into the statistics and say, I want everybody that has marked a number of everybody living in Southern California that has marked down Syrian, Palestinian, and just go through every possible choice, and then it'll give you that number. So I don't want to tell somebody, well, you must put down this, and that somebody says, well, I don't consider myself that. I want to put down this. Well, go ahead and put it down. Because at the end of the day, we'll still be able to get that number. And that's the most important thing, is to get that number. Okay? Did you want?
Yes, I would like to add, as Arab Americans, we all came together nationally and we started a campaign. The Arab American Institute, ADC, Access California, Arab Community Center for Economic and Social Services, NAC, so many different Arab American organizations came all together and we started that campaign, the Yalla Dumni ila Ta'dad, Yalla Count Me In. So that's what you're going to be hearing for the next maybe 8-9 months from all of us. So please join that campaign. Please be with us so we can be counted and we can have a number and a voice and resources for our community. Thank you.
There's one more. You okay? Okay. Thank you very much, and we'll
Yes.
have a few minutes for the next. Yeah.
For everyone who's here and wants to learn more about Yellow Count Me In and the initiatives that AAI and ADC are taking, we have a whole bunch of handouts out here, and we featured on our Instagram and Twitter pages. If you take a picture with one of these signs saying why you vote and why you want to be counted in the census in 2020. So come back here, get on the internet, and yeah.
Next time is your turn to go first. So next year, he's going to go first.